The impacts of climate change are now felt as natural disasters become more intense compared to those in the past. Historic floods, droughts, and record-breaking waves are affecting countless lives, displacing people from their homes and posing threats to livelihoods. The sad realization is that the world's poorest nations, which have limited resources to adapt to climate change, are the ones most affected. Bill Gates, who's the co-founder of Microsoft Corporation and the author of the book How to Avoid Climate Disaster, has been a dedicated supporter of the initiatives that address climate change. The book's main proposition is that people must cease adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Actions that can minimize global greenhouse gas emissions through renewable energy and clean technologies will help minimize, if not prevent, the devastating effects of climate change. Here are the top 7 lessons from the book How to Avoid a Climate Disaster. Lesson 1. Know the different sources of emissions. Various activities in our daily life can contribute to the emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases in one way or another. For example, driving to work burns a certain amount of fuel, and fossil fuels are the main source of greenhouse gases. The measure of the impact our driving to work has on the amount of carbon dioxide produced through the burning of fossil fuels is called a carbon footprint. Even our favorite meat products, such as beef, have larger carbon footprints per calorie than vegetable products because of the methane released from meat production. Thus, it's important that we are aware of the different sources of greenhouse gas emissions so that we would know how we can make a change in our activities and lifestyles to decrease our carbon footprint. Lesson 2. Stop adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. Gates pointed out 2 numbers that we need to know about climate change: 51 billion and 0. 51 billion is the number of tons of greenhouse gases that are added to the atmosphere every year. 0 is what is required to aim for in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. This seems tough and challenging, but if every country will change its ways, it's not impossible to achieve. Individual changes, if sustained and adopted by many, can have meaningful impact in the long run. For example, replacing incandescent light bulbs with LEDs, installing a smart thermostat, opting for efficient appliances, and shifting to plant-based diet can reduce individual carbon emissions. Lesson 3. Plant trees to compensate greenhouse gases. One mature tree absorbs carbon dioxide, which is one of the greenhouse gases, at a rate of 48 pounds per year. Hence, the more trees there are, the more of these harmful gases are prevented from staying in the atmosphere and causing global warming. We may have to start planting trees now if we want to reduce those greenhouse gases as soon as possible. Lesson 4. Switch towards plant-based diets. Studies show that the production of meat and dairy products releases large amounts of greenhouse gases. Consequently, higher consumption of meat and dairy would require an increase in production. These reports and studies further state that plant-based diets are associated with the greatest reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. For instance, a recent study by the University of Oxford shows that shifting to a plant-based diet can make a significant impact in avoiding the worst effects of climate change because a vegan could reduce carbon footprint by 73%. We may have to reconsider this dietary change, not only for the planet, but for our own health as well. Lesson 5. Send a demand signal to the market. When people pay for an electric car or a plant-based burger, companies will get the idea that there's a market for these products because we're buying it. If enough people send the same signal, businesses will respond by making low-emissions products, and this will lower the prices of those products. Investors will have more confidence about financing new companies that are making these green innovations, since we, the consumers, are dictating it. Lesson 6. Get comfortable with change. One of the most important arguments presented in the book is that fossil fuels and activities that result in large levels of greenhouse gas emissions are ubiquitous. To effectively address climate change, everyone on the planet must modify their mindsets and behaviors. For example, food waste can be mitigated by technology, such as a smart bin that calculates a person's carbon footprint, depending on the food they throw away. Also, as more individuals choose vegetarian diets and plant-based proteins, eating less meat can have a significant influence on lowering greenhouse gas emissions. This goes to show that changing our habits will have a significant impact on whether we accomplish our climate targets. Lesson 7. Talk to everyone you know. Everybody needs to learn more about climate change. People also need to share their learning to others. Participation in policy and decision-making related to climate change is very important to ensure that governments are making climate action top priority. Our purchasing voice can influence the shift of the market towards clean energy and technology and production of green products. We just have to make our individual efforts in putting the message across. In conclusion, this book underscores the reason why climate change is the most pressing global issue in this era, and Bill Gates not only wrote about the problem, but he also presented the opportunities to solve it. He describes the areas in which technology is already helping to reduce emissions, where and how current technology can be made to function more effectively, where innovative technologies are needed, and who's working on these essential breakthroughs, based on his understanding of innovation and what it takes to get new ideas into the market. Reading the book will help us realize the gravity of the climate change problem and how much work still needs to be done to solve it. But if we start with ourselves, if we do our own part even in simple ways, then we could eventually reach our goal of having a healthier planet and of having a better world for the future generations. Thank you for listening. If you like the book summary and you want to see more in this category, please like and subscribe so I can create more. You can also get a free copy of the entire audiobook by clicking the link in the description. Until next time.